G'day Darkrealmers. You may be familiar with this version of Sabrina and this version of Sabrina, or maybe even this version of Sabrina, but you probably won't be expecting the version we're going to look at today. Yeah. G'day Darkrealmers, it's horror author and illustrator Michael J. Elliott here with you again today, and welcome to our new playlist. This is where we're going to be examining horror from TV. So anything new or scary or horrifying or thrilling will probably be on this playlist, and thanks for joining us. Hey, if this is your first trip to the Diaries, thanks so much for joining us. And if you want some help in finding the best horror movies from the world of Hollywood or indie and books, then hit that subscribe button and the bell notification and you'll always be up to date. Alright? Okay, Darkrealmers. Now, my knowledge of Sabrina goes back to the 70s when I used to watch the cartoons, Archie, and then the spin-off Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and also one of my favourite cartoons was Groovy Ghoulies, and she occasionally made an appearance in that. And then we got the Melissa Joan Hart series, which was all light and fluffy and very nice and cool. I always thought that, though, I don't know if it may have been just me, but I always felt it was rushed, like the dialogue was just spoken so fast, you know, that it was almost like they were rushing to get a half-hour sitcom done. And when I saw The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix, I was really expecting a sort of, you know, maybe Goosebumps type version of Sabrina. You know, something a little bit dark, maybe for teens and everything, but still very nice and light. Oh no. This is dark. We're talking Darkrealmer dark here, okay? And while I was doing some research and getting some graphics and so forth for you today, Darkrealmers, I came across, you know, a cover of a comic, a Sabrina comic, and the imprint was Archie Horror. Now, I had no idea they'd gone that deep, that dark, okay? And the covers were like, you know, pentagrams and, you know, spooky shit like that. Because when I started watching the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, I thought, gee, this is really brave. They've taken that nice light sitcom with Melissa Joan Hart and turned it into something dark. But it's obviously based on the Archie Horror series. Now, this is very, very dark. Now, if you sort of a little bit unfamiliar with Sabrina the Teenage Witch in all her incarnations, she's basically exactly like the title says. She's a teenage witch. She lives with her two aunts, Aunt Hilda and Aunt Zelda, and her familiar stroke cat, Salem. Now, she juggles between being a witch and being a normal high school student with normal teenage problems and so forth. And that was explored very well in the sitcom, the Melissa Joan Hart series. And my favourite character of that, apart from Salem, who was just awesome, was Aunt Hilda, played by Catherine Rea, who was just great. Now, in this version, we have Sabrina with the same teenage angst, but much darker. Her friends at school are being bullied. You know, she's developing that. She's still very much in love with Harvey from the comics and so forth, but, you know, she's on the verge of should she have sex for the first time and things like that. Now, before I tell you a little bit more, Darkrealmers, check out the Netflix trailer for this.
Coming to get you, Barbara.
Harvey Kinkle, the only person you're gonna scare is yourself.
Gotcha.
Good night, Harvey.
Good night, Sabrina.
In the town of Greendale, where it always feels like Halloween, there lived a girl who was half witch,
Absent omen.
half mortal who, on her 16th birthday, would have to choose between two worlds, the witch world of her family and the human world of her friends.
Happy birthday, sweet 16.
And that girl is me.
Are you willing to forsake the path of light and follow the path of night?
It's very
I can't do this.
You must.
I shall deliver Sabrina. You're going to die, half-breed.
Girls, let's not be catty bitches.
It's just that you've grown up before my very eyes.
You're a rebel, Spellman. That's how I like my witches.
Right. You turned into the prettiest
I'm not an evil person,
thing.
but these are desperate times.
Happy birthday, sweet 16. Happy birthday, sweet 16.
My name is Sabrina Spellman, and I will not sign it away.
Would you like to do the honors?
With pleasure.
Rise. Rise.
Happy birthday, sweet 16.
Was on Hilda.
She annoyed me, so I killed her and buried her in the yard.
Okay, Darkrealmers, now, when we're talking witches, we're talking full-on witches. We're talking devil worship witches here. They are fully fledged, servants of Satan, the infernal lord as they call them. And, Sabrina is about to undergo her, infernal baptism, and sign herself over to Satan in return for her powers. And this is all to occur on her birthday, which is Halloween, and it's very auspicious because it's under a blood red moon, which only happens once every 66 years apparently. But what's really interesting about this show, which hooked me almost straight away because it wasn't anything I was expecting, Darkrealmers, was the way that the writers and directors set up the conflict that she's feeling between living her life as a mortal because her mother was mortal and her father was a warlock, and becoming a full-on witch, and so she's very much torn. She can see, because it's traditional, that at 16 she signs the Book of the Beast, and pledges to serve Satan. But then it's offset by things happening at her school where one of her friends, Jackie, is constantly bullied, because of her boyish appearance, and she's picked on by the school jocks. And this outrages Sabrina's sense of, fair go and decency and things like that. And there's also her other friend who we just discover is slowly going blind from a disease, and when she can't get books at the school library because the PTA have banned them, she explains how every book is precious because she's only got a certain amount of time before she can't read them anymore, with sight. And that's very touching, and I found that a brilliant scene. But there's also scary stuff in here, Darkrealmers, and it's not necessarily all sort of horrifying scenes. Now, the Spellmans run a mortuary, which is, creepy enough in this sort of little small town, but the house itself is really creepy. And they are looking after the body of a young man who's been killed. And Aunt Hilda, as in one small scene says, such a pity they wanted an open casket. You know, it's been ages since we've had long pork. Yeah, and for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, long pork is the name that's known to as people when you eat people, cannibalism. So these witches are cannibals too. Darkrealmers, like, oh, and the way they say it, it's just like matter of fact, okay. And there are still some elements from the original TV show and so forth in this. Now, Aunt Hilda is the very stern, the very proper one, the one that insists that, Sabrina, you will go to your baptism. And Aunt Zelda's still that slightly dippy, the one who's more on her side, you know, about her exploring her mortal, life and so forth. And she's constantly picked on by Hilda for this. And there's a great sense of angst too with this, because according to tradition, once Sabrina signs this book, she must go and attend the Academy of Unseen Arts, which is basically a witches' school, but it's like no Harry Potter, you know. And there is school bitches, which is the three who Sabrina encounters earlier on are called the Weird Sisters. Now look up your mythology and your sort of arcane type things and you'll see a reference. It's a very clever reference to something that is well known. They've also, the characters in here are great. Now there's Cousin Ambrose, who for some crime that we haven't found out yet, or at least I haven't found out, Darkrealmers, because I'm sat up till 3 a.m. last night and I must go to bed. No, one more episode. Yeah. He's under house arrest. He can't leave. Okay, and it's unspecified, but he works in the mortuary, you know, getting the bodies ready for the funerals and so forth like that. He's also gay, and he meets a warlock, and there's a wonderful scene where he goes astral travelling, and apparently even astral travelling is not allowed. You know, Aunt Hilda says, you are under house arrest. That means you do not leave the boundaries of the house, either physically or spiritually. Okay, and it's just wonderful. There's one of the best characters. Now, I'm a huge fan of Michelle Gomez. Now, if you're not familiar with her, she's been in some wonderful things. There was a comedy show she was in, a British comedy show called Bad Education with Jack Whitehall, and she was just wonderful in that. Then she showed us how dark she could be as Missy, stroke the Master, in the new version of Doctor Who. And in this series, she's a very bookish teacher who, is very quiet, very introverted. And then she picks up a girl who actually turns out to be a demoness who murders her and takes over her body. And then she becomes like this vamp, this sort of sexually... And she's got her own agenda. She works for Satan. She's got... And we, there's this pull between Satan, wanting her to be at this academy and her, declaring her independence. No, I am not going to. You told me I'd have free will, and I'm not going to have that. I'm not giving up my friends. I'm not giving up this. Just wonderful, Darkrealmers. Now, as I said, this is very dark. It is very creepy. There are scenes in here that made me shudder, but it's done very competently. It's done very well, and the acting, as I said, is all superb in this show. And I've got to give credit to the directors and the writers, because this is a spin-off from another Netflix series, which Riverdale, which is the sort of Archie gang, and that didn't sort of appeal to me as a series, so I've never watched it. But I really, really hope this TV show, is a huge success, because it is so well done. It's so dark, and it's something you don't expect. Like you go from Sabrina, the teenage witch, in the cartoons and that, and all this light and fluff, to something very, very dark and something very frightening. The way they reference, you know, how women, you know, were tortured and murdered, you know, during the period around where Salem witch trials were and things like that. That's frightening in itself, but it's very sad, and it's also a sad indictment too of you know, how we persecute the unknown and people who are a little bit different and so forth like that. Okay, Darkrealmers, well, I could go on and on about how enjoyable this show is, but I won't. So as I said, if you want to see it, please check it out on Netflix and book yourself in, because this is one of those shows where you want to do a sort of, what is it called, you know, like, you know, sit in and watch the whole thing. Which I tried to do, but obviously wasn't successful last night, Darkrealmers, and it kept dragging me away from the fact that I was trying to write my latest novelette at the time too. So that shows you how good it is. All right, Darkrealmers, well, that's it from me, horror author and illustrator Michael J. Elliott. I hope you've liked this new playlist entry, the first one on our playlist, showing you some TV shows to look out for. I'll be back with some more very, very soon. But if you've seen Sabrina on Netflix, let me know what you thought of it in the comments, okay? And if you haven't seen it, has the trailer made you want to see it, or would you prefer your childhood to be lovely and unspoiled and just remember the nice Archie from the comics? Okay, well, that's it from me. As I said, thank you so much for viewing, and thank you so much for leaving all your comments. I do appreciate it. And as I said, if you're going to watch this, then make sure you definitely stay in the light. Bye for now, Dark.